in Mago Reddit. Today's story is...
My sister excluded me from her wedding. 8 years later, I discovered her chilling secret plan to sabotage my marriage, and the whole family was shocked. Greetings to all. I am 26 years old, and in a year's time, I will be getting married. I recently distributed the Save the Date cards, and since then, my nuclear family has not stopped criticizing me. I need to explain some background before getting into the current conflict. My relationship with Kayla, my 31-year-old sister, is quite tense. She has always displayed dominant and unpleasant behavior, a situation that persists to this day. Throughout my life, I tried to establish a close bond with her, but she never reciprocated my efforts. She treated me like a nuisance and constantly kept her distance. In my naive youth, I persisted in seeking her affection. I admired her deeply and longed for a genuine connection. In our childhood, Kayla constantly sought to be the center of attention. I accepted her character as it was. Perhaps I was naive to imagine that we could have a genuine fraternal bond. The defining moment of my awakening came when she excluded me from her marriage. She explained that her celebration prohibited the entry of minors, so I could not attend. The absurd thing was that her ceremony would take place just 7 days before my 18th birthday. I tearfully begged her to make an exception because it was ridiculous to categorize me as a child. The establishment did not ban minors and they would not serve alcohol. She had no valid justification for refusing me entry. I suspect she simply did not want me there. My pleas were useless, and my parents avoided interceding. From that episode on, I began to distance myself emotionally from Kayla. She seemed not to notice or simply ignored it. I am inclined to believe it was the latter. Our relationship became extremely strange, and I hardly know her husband. We only coincide at family gatherings without maintaining individual communication. I love her 2 little ones, but, frankly, I don't have a close relationship with them either. Kayla has never tried to spend time alone with me or invited me to her home. When her children were born, I tried to get closer, but she dismissed all my efforts. Eventually, I gave up and focused my attention on relatives who genuinely value me. This previous story will help you understand the current situation. I got engaged, and we agreed on a date with my future husband. From the beginning, we decided that our celebration would exclude minors. We designed the Save the Date invitations clearly stating our no children policy and sent them to everyone, including Kayla. I was happily focused on the preparations when something happened that motivated this publication. A few days ago, my sister called me extremely upset, implying that I must be joking. I did not initially understand her excitement and asked her to explain the problem. In the middle of her diatribe, I finally understood that she was outraged because my ceremony would exclude minors. Can you believe it? The same person who organized a child-free wedding was now berating me for doing exactly the same thing. I was stunned listening to her complaints. I repeatedly asked her if she was serious or if I had misinterpreted her words. Unfortunately, she confirmed my suspicions between expressions of fury. She hated that I was excluding children. I replied that, as it was my wedding, I would set the conditions. I firmly expressed my desire not to include children. Kayla exploded, calling me an immature and arrogant monster bride for excluding her innocent nephews. I calmly replied that most of them are barely 5 years old, so they would hardly miss the event. Besides, I preferred to avoid them running around wildly. I also mentioned that there would be plenty of alcohol available. All relatives with children have babies or young infants, and we know that it is impossible to keep them quiet or disciplined all the time. Children will act according to their nature, and to avoid any mishaps, I decided to eliminate the problem at the root. Apparently, I made a mistake because he then accused me of calling his son difficult and uncontrollable. I flatly denied having said such a thing. Her response was that they should be invited then, as they wouldn't cause the problems I feared. I explained that I wouldn't make exceptions because others would want the same thing and accuse me of favoritism. I have friends and close cousins who would be hurt if I allowed Kayla's children to attend while theirs were not invited. I explained all this, but she refused to listen, shouting at me incessantly. Eventually, my patience ran out, and I reminded her that she had no right to be angry when she herself had organized a child-free wedding. I reminded her how she excluded her own sister, who was about to turn 18. I was only banning young children while she prevented me from attending her ceremony. This made her even more angry. She began to shout, accusing me of being vindictive, spiteful, and immature for clinging to old conflicts. She called me unbalanced and claimed that I was doing this deliberately as retaliation. I was explaining to her that this had nothing to do with her when she hung up abruptly. I did not try to contact her again, maintaining total silence. However, Kayla has flooded my phone with insulting messages. She has also recruited our parents to put pressure on me too. They argue that banning children seems excessive and that it shouldn't be cruel to exclude my own nephews. They insist that I shouldn't damage my sisterly relationship over something so small and that her request is insignificant. I don't understand how they can consider this small or even a request. I'm really annoyed with my parents too. I spoke to my fiancé, who also refuses to make exceptions. In fact, he is extremely annoyed with my family for trying to manipulate me. They know exactly what happened with Kayla's wedding, and he is outraged that I am being criticized for the same decision. My future husband stands firm on his stance on excluding children, and his family fully supports this decision. So my fiancé totally agrees with me, and now doesn't even want my obnoxious sister to attend. But my parents and sister feel the opposite, even resorting to emotional blackmail. Although we are not close, I love my nieces and nephews, and this makes me feel guilty. Between the wedding preparations and my stressful job, I feel like I'm going to lose my mind. What should I do now? I literally can't deal with this drama anymore. I'm seriously considering eloping, and I would have done it already if it weren't for my fiancé's family. They are not to blame, and they don't deserve to miss their son's celebration. But this absurd family pressure makes me question all my life decisions. I received too many comments to respond to each one individually, so I will clarify some general points. I will include more information in the next update. This one only addresses recurring questions. I anticipated criticism for holding a childless wedding. I honestly don't see a problem with this decision. If I had teenage cousins, I would have included them. But all the minors in the family are 6 or 7 years old at most. Don't pretend that children never cause problems. Besides, ceremonies are tedious and long for them. Sending them home after the ceremony would be impolite and would make them feel worse. That's why I prefer not to include them in any part of the event. Many asked about Kayla's reaction when I mentioned her hypocrisy. Her justification was twisted. She argued that no one had children back then, so her restriction was logical. But now that several cousins have children, I should include them. I realized that I would indeed have been the only minor at her wedding. Her friends had not married so young, and none of her cousins had any children at the time. As the youngest member of the family, she still made no exceptions for me. I question why my parents allowed her whim then and now object to my decision. I begged them to convince Kayla to invite me, but they replied that as it was their special day, they could not interfere. Regarding the opinion of other guests about my restriction, absolutely everyone accepted without objection. They live nearby and will get babysitters. I'm giving them a year's notice, allowing them to organize properly. I suspect that some secretly welcome the opportunity to enjoy adult time without feeling guilty. I'm offering them a day of fun without parental responsibilities. Update 1. It is strange to see so many reactions to my post. Although I received a variety of opinions, most of the criticism came from people who hate childless weddings. I don't understand why some people think their children belong anywhere. Do they also demand to take them to exclusively adult places? I find this logic incomprehensible. People with such entitled attitudes are precisely the reason why many couples choose to exclude children. Little ones inevitably cause disorder. Getting angry with them would be unfair because of their childish nature, so the simple solution is not to include them. Besides, that child will hardly remember the celebration and will probably get bored during the ceremony. What do bored children do at weddings? Stop pretending that minors deserve universal access. They are no better than my sister. Some tried to apply reverse psychology by suggesting that I shouldn't complain about my exclusion from Kayla's wedding using the same logic. The difference is that I was almost 18 and fully understood wedding protocol. I attended ceremonies from the age of 14, without causing problems or disturbances because I had sufficient self-control. If there were teenagers in the family, I would allow them to attend. I repeat, the children excluded are under 7 years old. I offer my perspective because I will not debate these unpleasant comments again. I sincerely thank those who offered constructive advice. They made excellent observations about Kayla's attention-seeking behavior. They may be right. My sister hates being the center of attention. She never wanted siblings and hates sharing the spotlight. I think my parents felt guilty about having another child against their wishes, so they try to make it up to her by siding with her and asking me to give in. Kayla has historically ruined my special moments with tantrums. I suspect she deliberately scheduled her wedding close to my 18th birthday to hog the attention. In my family, this birthday is significant and specially celebrated. I couldn't celebrate it because everyone was exhausted after her wedding and my parents were on a budget. I was disappointed, but I accepted it. Kayla received all the attention during her marriage. She announced her first pregnancy during my 20th birthday, and the second just after I got my first formal job. Clearly there is a pattern. I hadn't analyzed it until her comments made me reflect. Maybe she tries to generate conflicts to steal the limelight. I am exhausted by her behavior, but I don't know how to proceed. Some suggested withdrawing her invitation. Unfortunately, it is not viable. My parents value family ties enormously and would take it badly. Curiously, even Nate, my fiancé of 27 years, has suggested that Kayla should not attend if she is so bothered by our circumstances. But I know this is impossible. My parents are now insisting on a family meeting to resolve the conflict. I don't know if it will work, but I will probably attend. They want Kayla and I to meet with them to discuss everything as a family under the same roof. They are convinced that we will reach a satisfactory agreement. I don't know what kind of compromise they expect from me, but I'll find out then. I am preparing myself mentally to maintain my firm position without giving in to pressure. I am not easily manipulated, so I am not overly concerned. I will update you on the results of this conversation. Update 2. I have just returned from our family gathering and am still confused as to how to proceed. My parents were convinced that we would reach an agreement, but nothing changed. As I anticipated, neither Kayla nor I budged an inch. She continued to verbally abuse me for daring to exclude her precious children. I tried to explain my position again, but she refused to listen. My parents seemed to sympathize with me as I maintained civilized composure while my sister raged uncontrollably. However, they were also unable to get Kayla to listen to reason. I firmly communicated to Kayla that no amount of shouting or manipulation would change my decision. She then demanded that I find and pay for babysitters as she insisted on ruining the fun. I categorically rejected her demand, considering it not to be my responsibility. Nobody else was requesting compensation or assistance. Kayla can easily afford childcare. She occasionally hires it for her romantic dates. However, she refused to pay for it personally because excluding her children was not her choice. I reiterated that I would not pay for childcare simply because she demanded it. Our budget is limited and Nate would not approve of this expense either. Kayla then started ranting about how difficult it was to find babysitters on such short notice, so the least she could do was pay for them. I laughed, reminding her that she had a whole year to get organized. My parents then offered to pay for the service, but Kayla refused their money. She was indeed acting petty. She wanted me to pay for ignoring her feelings about my wedding. My parents also suggested that Kayla's husband stay at home with the children while she attended alone. My sister strongly disliked this proposal. After what seemed like an eternity, I was completely exhausted by the argument. Mentally and emotionally drained by my sister's tantrums, I declared that I would not modify my celebration for her, and if it bothered her so much, she could simply not attend. Kayla yelled at me again and my parents backed her up, scolding me for suggesting such a thing and stating that I should want her presence. I left shortly after because the conversation was proving fruitless. I knew the meeting would be useless and would not provide solutions. Back home, I informed Nate about what had happened. His indignation has increased considerably. My relatives continue to bombard my phone with messages that I have not yet checked. I am now seriously contemplating eloping without inviting any of my family. If distant relatives question their absence, I will refer them to my parents. My patience has reached its limit, and eloping seems the best alternative at present. Update 3. Before continuing, I must express how much your kind comments have helped me. I was completely fed up and felt that my celebration was already ruined. I hadn't even planned properly, and already problems were arising. I felt extremely demotivated without being able to experience the pre-wedding excitement. The whole process was overshadowed by my sister's drama. I was ready to run away with Nate and was going to tell him to inform his family. But her comments really enlightened me. They rightly pointed out that I shouldn't punish friends and extended family who are completely blameless. They also observed that my sister was already managing to turn everything into a personal issue, managing to hog the limelight. It was like a sudden revelation. My sister was already sabotaging my wedding and I was letting her. I should have ended this nonsense long before. I don't even understand why she insisted so much on being there when our relationship was already precarious. Kayla has repeatedly shown that she will not change her behavior. I'm just wasting energy and giving it unnecessary importance. I reflected deeply and decided to talk to my parents. I invited Nate along for emotional support. We met without my sister because I needed to talk to them privately. Many comments harshly criticized my parents for their role in this conflict. Although I am upset, they are still my parents. They are considerably better than my unbearable sister, so I wanted to try to make them understand my perspective. We talked at length and I fully expressed my feelings. It was not a calm or structured conversation. We all cried intensely in an extremely emotional exchange. This time I held nothing back. I reminded my parents of all the times Kayla had ruined my special moments to divert attention to herself. I reminded them how they refused to persuade Kayla to include me in her wedding, so now I had no moral authority to demand that she include their children. I completely unloaded my frustrations, even confessing that all this pressure made me consider calling it all off and simply eloping. I think it deeply shocked my parents to hear that I was considering running away because I was exhausted from planning my own celebration. Nate intervened to confirm that he supported us eloping, as all this conflict made me reject a traditional wedding. My mother cried inconsolably while my father tried desperately to persuade me. They sincerely apologized, acknowledging their complicity in allowing Kayla to systematically attack me for years. I was right in assuming that they favored Kayla because she frequently reproached them for having given her a sister, forcing her to share everything with me. The level of jealousy and selfishness shown by my sister is truly pathological. I am absolutely fed up with her. We had a long conversation in which Nate also made tremendously useful observations. He provided an outside perspective that helped my parents understand their injustice towards me. They begged us not to elope because they didn't want to miss my wedding. Curiously, they also expressed their desire to genuinely enjoy my celebration, since they had spent most of my other achievements calming Kayla or celebrating her successes instead of mine. I had explained to them how Kayla always found ways to ruin my special occasions. My parents also seemed fed up with this behavior. Fortunately, they finally understood me and promised to improve. As for my sister, I no longer care. I will soon write a letter terminating contact and formally revoke her invitation. Nate and I have made our decision, and now my parents support it. Kayla may be my sister, but I will not be completely manipulated into preserving that bond. I am completely serious when I say that I am fed up. Update 4. Hello everyone. I felt the need to share one last update. Many of you have sent me private messages asking about what has happened since, expecting some additional drama. Indeed, my sister caused a bit of a fuss after I told her my decisions. However, I am currently enjoying relative peace. Although I anticipated her dramatic reaction, on this occasion she suffered more serious consequences than I did. You may be interested to know how she was harmed, which is why I am returning with this update. Early warning, my sister is currently facing marital problems. As promised, I wrote and sent my sister text messages and emails formally notifying her of her exclusion from the wedding and my decision to cut off contact indefinitely. I detailed all her past faults, reminding her of her unpleasant behavior. I made it clear that I would no longer tolerate her drama or allow her to manipulate me. After receiving my communication, she reacted furiously once again. Surprisingly, she was offended by the cancellation of her invitation and my decision to break off contact. I had hoped she would be pleased, considering that she never wanted me in her life. However, she became indignant and went to our parents to complain about my lack of response. She received an unpleasant surprise when my parents supported me, instead of backing her. She then contacted the rest of the family, claiming that I unjustifiably excluded her, and describing me as jealous, malicious, and controlling. Initially, several people contacted me suggesting reconciliation and understanding towards her. However, my 34-year-old cousin Giselle revealed surprising information in our group chat. According to Giselle, Kayla was furious about her exclusion because she had planned something to steal my limelight. She informed us that Kayla was actively trying to convince her husband to have a third child, planning to appear pregnant or announce her pregnancy during my wedding. Apparently, my sister suffers from more severe disorders than imagined. She had imprudently shared her plans with Giselle after my engagement. Kayla even proudly boasted that she would humiliate me during my celebration by hogging the attention as she always did. I will avoid detailing her other statements, but they show that Kayla has a competitive obsession with me. Although I never participated in such a competition, she perceives me as a rival. She was enraged to discover that she would lose future opportunities to outshine me due to my decision to cut contact. Imagine the serious consequences she faced when Giselle exposed this information. In short, everyone thinks she has lost her mind, and my own parents are extremely upset with her. Surprisingly, Kayla did not deny anything and tried to justify her behavior. I think it made the situation worse because her husband completely disapproved of her attitude. According to my parents, he was outraged to discover that Kayla was pushing for a third pregnancy solely to sabotage my wedding. Apparently, she had already displayed competitive behavior with other female relatives, so her in-laws were already upset. This incident was decisive for her husband, who gave her an ultimatum: seek professional help or get a divorce. Kayla went crying to our parents, blaming me for ruining her marriage because of my jealousy. Indeed, this also happens to be my fault according to her. She tried to insult and shout at me from different phone numbers, but I hung up immediately when I recognized her voice. Fortunately, she stopped these tactics within a few days because her husband began to get deeply angry. They are currently attending marriage counseling while her husband sleeps in a separate room. I'm pretty sure she's staying only for the children. He has been upset for a considerable time because Kayla's behavior has also damaged his family relationships. I hope she finally takes her treatment seriously and works on improving. As for me, it looks like I will enjoy a peaceful and conflict-free wedding. I greatly appreciate her contributions because they helped me set firm boundaries. This will be my last update as new problems are unlikely to arise. If anything else happens, I will return with another post. Thank you for your attention.